Joe Biden gives a speech, a moving, a rousing speech, in front of a shadowy red background in which he shouts for the entire speech, talking about the source of all of your problems. Why does this sound so familiar? We'll talk about this. We'll go over some of the speech, and that's actually probably going to eat up most of the day. But in other news, John Fetterman apparently has convicted murderers on his campaign, so we'll talk a bit about that, what that means, and where we go from there. The Taliban celebrates and parades in front of the U.S. Embassy to celebrate the day that the U.S. pulled out of the country and they took themselves back over. And Truth Social remains barred from the Google Play Store. We'll talk about why and what this means coming into the next election. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome back to the backup channel. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You know what the worst part of that speech was? And I listened to the whole thing. I listened to it last night. I'm behind on some of the regular listening that I do because of that, because I got out of work early and then I had to go deal with an issue with a very, very close personal friend of mine. So I'll be finding out what's happening with that in the near future. But I found out about that, and then I listened to this speech, and I didn't watch the speech. I was up cooking and getting my dinner in because I wound up getting to that late too yesterday. But once it was all through, once I started to hear everything out and realize exactly where they were going with this, I realized on top of everything else that with the speech, with the angry old man shouting at the clouds in a manner that is very divisive and sounds very, very much like a certain art student in 1930s Germany. On top of that, somebody looked at that and said, you know what this speech needs? A shadowy red background with two Marines standing behind him. And I've seen, because what they had up for the background was a stage. They added that because at some of the angles when looking at it, you can see around there and the cool blues that are up around this. I mean, the shadowy red background, that was a deliberate choice. But we'll be talking about that for probably most of the show. We've got some other stuff to go over here. I do want to see if we can't get caught up on this foreign policy stuff, and especially with China. But with the archive taking as long as it did, like a massive long archiving for a couple of the Fox News articles that I had here, we are way behind here and we've got to get started. So before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys, BJ Patriot, the No Gimmicks Podcast, Mr. Behavior, Tweets by Brit, KTZed. Go check out all of that great programming. It's going to be a wonderful time. We strive to get you news and culture by the common man for the common man. And I like the fact that KTZed is moving into true crime, because that is, I mean, I'm in the dating pool again. So, well, not again. It's been 2 years, just about. But I'm in the dating pool, and, you know, you get bored one day, you pick up the app, and, you know, right swipe, left swipe, and when you look at their profiles, I love true crime podcasts. Well, we have one that's not organized by the people who hate you to keep you distracted. We have true crime from somebody who's actually like you. So you can go check that out over there. That seems to be a big popular thing right now. So go and check that out every other week. Go check out all the other great names that I pointed out to everybody here. So it's going to be a great time. We're trying to put a website together. Actually, I just got the update notice for updating the IP address, so I got to go get that paid. But hey, thanks to generous donations from people like you to the Give, Send, and Go, which we're going to be reviving here in the near future. Once I get a few people up on board, I'm going to make some phone calls over the weekend. Then we will have that up and going, and we're going to try to build a website that's by the common man for the common man. So I want to get some written stuff in there too, so watch for updates on that. Let's get into the finance and let's get started here. Looking into the Dow, which actually had an update yesterday. Kind of. We gained about 146 points throughout the day yesterday at the end, and it stayed down throughout most of the day, with the futures, of course, being down again, but then managed to claw its way back at the end to eke out the tiniest of tiny little wins at the very end. So we'll continue to watch this and see what happens with that and where that goes. Looking at Bitcoin, the Bitcoin has had a little bit of a roller coaster just on today. It is currently down 57.30, about a quarter of a percent from its previous day, down to $20,073 US and 80 US cents. And with that, the 5-day looks slightly better considering where we were at the 5-day at 19.6, but just bringing it back out and going through the first, it dumped off back below the 20,000 mark, and it's actually been clawing its way back, with midnight happening right about here. So Bitcoin is looking somewhat decent. We'll see what happens with that and where that goes and what we do through time. Maybe that economy really is getting better, and maybe it'll come back and shoot back up to 70,000 or 100,000. But as of right now, I don't see a lot of that happening, but we'll continue to watch that every day. However, a bit of reprieve for you, hopefully, but I know for us in the Madison area. Gas took a relatively significant dump yesterday. Down 2 in the Madison area, 329. Now Lodi up there, the outliers are still at 316 and 318, but it looks like every other station that's reported on gas budget day around the Madison area is at 329. So that is some good news, definitely. This is coming into the holiday weekend where we're starting to see some competition against Circle K and the hope that people will look at the price and say, gee, honey, we weren't planning on going on the trip, but we definitely want to go on this trip now. So let's get into the vehicle and let's get started and let's go here. Hey, we're saving 6 cents a gallon so we can go maybe all the way up to Devil's Lake. What do you think? But we'll look at more of this on Monday after the holiday weekend. Let's see what IBD has to say. And also, let's get the live chat up so I can see what you guys are saying. From Investors Business Daily, recession warnings. Buckle up for Fed's hard landing for U.S. economy, Dow Jones. From Jed Graham, a name that we don't usually hear from. Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell, with his August 26 Jackson Hole speech, ditched his optimism that... Why is this all the way back here? I think I grabbed the wrong IBD article. Let me go look at something here quick. Yeah, let's do this one instead, because this is going back over a speech that happened a week ago. All right, from Investors Business Daily, Dow futures extend gains on pivotal jobs report. Lululemon surges on earnings. From Scott Latonin. Dow futures extended gains Friday morning after the Labor Department's pivotal August jobs report. Broadcom and Lululemon were key earnings movers on Friday. Broadcom rallied 2% after beating Wall Street's targets and guiding higher for the current quarter. Lululemon surged 10% on strong quarterly earnings and sales results, along with lifted full-year guidance. EV leader Tesla rose more than 1% on Friday. Among the Dow Jones Industrials, tech titans Apple and Microsoft were higher ahead of today's stock market open. In the stock market's current volatility, Arista Networks, Costco, and Ulta Beauty, as well as Dow stocks Chevron, were among top stocks to buy and watch. Keep in mind, the market's increased volatility is a good reason for investors to be more defensive. Costco is an IBD leaderboard stock in the wake of a recent breakout, while Chevron and Ulta Beauty were featured in this week's Stocks Nearby Zone column. On the futures, early Friday, Dow futures extended gains to 0.6 versus fair value, while the S&P rose 0.7 and the Nasdaq gained 0.65 in morning trade. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Among ETFs, the Invesco QQQ Trust and the SPDR S&P 500 ETF were both up 0.5% in early trade. The 10-year yield ticked lower to 3.25 early Friday, with no GDP to back it up. On Thursday, the 10-year yield notched its highest closing since June 21st and just 6% off its 52-week high. U.S. oil prices took a modest bounce on Friday, looking to snap a 3-day losing streak. West Texas Intermediate rallied about 2% ahead of Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries meeting set for Monday, but remained just above $88 a barrel. Early Friday, the Labor Department released its August jobs report at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. The U.S. economy added 315,000 jobs in August. In stark contrast with what ADP told us 3 days ago. Topping estimates that call for 293,000 increase, the unemployment rate rose to 3.7%, just above the 3.5% estimate. So, some things to watch about that. Now we're adding 350,000 or 15,000 jobs, but our unemployment rate is ticking up. And something to watch with that, because we're starting to see some of the big guys brace for a recession that we're already in and start to go back and do layoffs. In fact, with something that had come up the night before, one of my friends actually had asked me if I was the one that got laid off, or if I had actually been laid off, when I was asking if anybody knew where there were some jobs around the area. Because we are starting to see that. And when we see the unemployment rate, what they bring up here, That's first-time claims. So while we come back and add 315,000 service tech sector jobs, gas station jobs, banker jobs, things like that, the places where people are always hiring, like the Quick Trip down the road or something like that. Well, we add 315,000 jobs of those. People who may have been on, long-term employed at a bigger company, like a manufacturing base or like Ford or something else like that, are starting to lose out on their jobs, maybe have not come back out and got the new job in the service sector for half of what they were making before, and are sitting and getting that 3 points, or they're contributing to 3.7. So we'll continue to watch that and see what happens with that. Evidence is mounted. The monthly jobs reports are way off the mark, and that the labor market is much weaker than it appears. You think? That suggests a recession may be closer at hand for the U.S. economy than widely believed, even though we have had 2 quarters of consecutive GDP shrink, and we are in a recession. Earlier this week, ADP's private payrolls report said the payrolls added 132,000 positions in August, missing estimates that call for the growth of 225,000, which is why I'm looking at a number like this and saying, honkety honk 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 honk, and that I don't believe it. But we'll move off of this one here. There was one other finance article that I wanted to talk about here, and that comes to us from Politico. Now, the thing with Politico is, well, they are somewhat evidentiary in what's happening, so we'll be talking just a bit about that. But this is something that we've been talking about for quite a while here. We're in a housing recession, says Politico, which we have been. Again, this is not something that's new. There are people that are going out and attempting to buy right now, but it's just because their rent got tripled at some point throughout the past few months. Because as people are starting to sell off, or starting to realize that they couldn't go back out and get what they wanted after they sold off their house at the top of the market, we're starting to see a major demand for these apartments. The housing aspect is going to be a bit interesting, I think, as we look into some of this, because one of the things to look at with the housing market and the rental market is the fact that we're seeing millions of evictions and people having to go back, move in with mommy and daddy, which means that in some cases mommy and daddy are going to have to upgrade and get a bigger house after they downsize because it was just them. We're going to see some of that, plus on top of that, people going out and having the demand for this as they either start losing their houses or selling while they're still somewhere up in the market or attempting to sell. And then, as a person that I work with is doing, sell off the house at the top of the market and live in a tiny apartment until the market drops out and this person can go back and make a fortune off of what he had. But reading here from Katie O'Donnell, the Federal Reserve's aggressive efforts to ratchet up the interest rates have spurred concerns the U.S. economy is heading towards a recession, but one pivotal industry may already be there. All industries are there. We've had 2 quarters of GDP drop. All sectors are in a recession. The housing market has cooled so much as the Fed withdraws its support for the economy that some analysts say it may be in a slump. Mortgage rates are nearly doubled in the first half of the year. The Fitch Ratings service has raised a specter of a severe downturn that could send home prices tumbling. Housing starts plunged in July. Builder confidence has declined the most since the 2008 meltdown, and new home sales last month were down 30% from the previous year, census data shows. I think we're in a housing recession right now, Robert Dietz, chief economist at the National Association of Home Builders. After a year and a half of post-COVID housing strength, this just isn't a retrenchment of a more normalized trend. This is definitely a weakening. That's a big deal because spending on housing accounts for as much as 18% of GDP, and the sector typically leads recovery, so even as the Biden admin touts the strength of the labor market, which I don't know where he's getting that claim from, I really don't, and consumer spending holds up, a prolonged downturn in the housing market may deepen the potential recession on the horizon for the U.S. economy. We are in a recession! As the primary way most Americans build wealth, homeownership has long played a central role in the economy. It took on additional weight during the pandemic, buoying a turbulent time as white-collar Americans stoked from demand by seeking more spacious homes amid lockdowns and work-from-home policies. Record low mortgage rates encouraged the buying surge, and homeowners pushed to refinance loans, giving them a steadier financial foothold to weather the pinko pox-driven volatility. While home prices declined for the last month, for the first time in 3 years, they're still set up from a year ago, thanks to skyrocketing growth over the course of the pandemic, but the rise in mortgage rates driven by the Fed's rate hikes priced many would-be buyers out of the market. See, they keep trying to tell us, we have a recession on the horizon, we have a recession on the horizon. Dude, we are there. Somebody on Twitch, throw me up the I did that sticker, because we're going to be talking about the person who actually did that too. Spend, 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 spend. Give away more money. Hey, have some more money. Go spend some more money in the economy that you didn't already have. Oh, you want to go buy a house? Well, oh no, now we're hyperinflating the currency. Better raise that interest rate. The economy is ruined. We're there. So, buckle up. And I hope that you can either upgrade or buy your first home in the midst of the crash. I know that's what I'm planning on doing. Let's grab one. Let's go talk about yesterday's speech. Now, in Philadelphia, President Biden decided that he was going to give a speech, and we're already starting to see some of the ways that this has been adjusted and changed off of this. So, I have the speech. I have it queued up right from the beginning, so we don't have to sit and watch some of the festivities. We're not going to watch the entire thing. I did listen to the entire 22 minutes of the speech, but it's the beginning of the speech that I think we need to pay the most attention to with this. And now the copy of this that I got is having some audio issues, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to see if I can get that adjusted, but we're going to watch and listen to this speech and really see what it is that Biden has to say about us, about Americans, and about the rest of us. So let me get the music muted here. And let's have a listen to the House Plant Chief.
Muss in Deutschland kommen und muss sagen, den Frieden wollen wir, aber diese ununterbrochene Entrückung lehnen wir ab. Und die Entbehrung ertragen wir nicht. Bei Diktaten wirken wir nicht mit. Sie mögen ein Diktat als Diktat uns aufoktroyieren.
All right. Of course, that was me just screwing around. That is, in fact, a 1933 speech from Hitler that we had as the audio here. But I do think it's worth noting and listening to some of this here. So, give Dr. Jill the kiss, and let's listen to some of this in reality.
My fellow Americans, please, if you have a seat, take it. I speak to you tonight from sacred ground in America, Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is where America made its Declaration of Independence to the world more than 2 centuries ago with an idea unique among nations, that in America, we're all created equal. This is where the United States Constitution was written and debated. This is where we set in motion the most extraordinary experiment of self-government the world has ever known. With 3 simple words: we the people. We the people. These 2 documents and the ideas they embody, equality and democracy, are the rock upon which this nation is built. They're how we became the greatest nation on earth. They're why, for more than 2 centuries, America has been a beacon to the world. But as I stand here tonight, equality and democracy are under assault. We do ourselves no favor to pretend otherwise. So tonight, I've come to this place where it all began to speak as plainly as I can to the nation about the threats we face, about the power we have in our own hands to meet these threats, and about the incredible future that lies in front of us if only we choose it. We must never forget, we the people are the true heirs of the American experiment that began more than 2 centuries ago. We the people have burning inside of each of us the flame of liberty that was lit here at Independence Hall.
So, I mean, thus far into this speech, this is not really that that bad of a speech. I mean, he's coming in here, he's with this to this, trying to, oh well, we're all going to be united. I'm going to be the uniter in chief. I'm going to unite everybody. So let's come together for the soul of the nation, because we have the flame of liberty inside of us that was done in this independence. It's basic campaign rhetoric. It's coming out here trying to get the people riled up and say, I can really be free as long as I let the government make all my decisions for me. But it turns in a big hurry.
A flame that lit our way through abolition, the Civil War, suffrage, the Great Depression, world wars, civil rights. That sacred flame still burns. Now in our time, as we build an America that is more prosperous, free, and just. That is the work of my presidency, a mission I believe in with my whole soul. But first,
I will go down to the crossroads and find Satan, and I will ask him what's actually in what you believe in your whole soul, because you haven't seen that for decades.
we must be honest with each other and with ourselves. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very
And here's where it turns.
foundations of our republic. Now, I want to be very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know, because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans. But there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country. These are hard things. But I'm an American president, not a president of red America or blue America, but of all America.
Hit the button to take a drink, and, you know, it always comes and bites me in the butt. I find it interesting that he used that particular line right there, immediately after saying, the biggest problem in your life it's MAGA Republicans. And that's the biggest problem that you have in everywhere in your life, and I'm the president of all America, not just red America or blue America, but those people over there. That right there, in and of itself, is a call to say we're on the edge of hearing of these aren't people, these are cockroaches. We know what happens when socialists come out and call a vast swath of the people cockroaches. It has to do with that funny little sound clip that I put over Biden just a few minutes ago.
And I believe it's my duty to level with you, to tell the truth, no matter how difficult, no matter how painful. And here, in my view, is what is true. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. They refuse to accept the results of a free election. And they're working right now, as I speak, in state after state, to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies, empowering election deniers to undermine democracy itself. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love. They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the flames of political violence that are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, to the very soul of this country. They look at the mob that stormed the United States Capitol on January 6th, brutally attacking law enforcement, not as insurrectionists who placed a dagger at the throat of our democracy, but they look at them as patriots. And they see their MAGA failure to stop a peaceful transfer of power after the 2020 election as preparation for the 2022 and 2024 elections. They tried everything last time to nullify the votes of 81 million people.
The vibes that I'm getting out of something like this are the fact that I did it again. That's literally what I said as I was coming out here and realizing that, again, we don't want to hear the straw noise on the microphone. So I hit the button, and then we're listening to nothing off of this. And it's the vibes that I'm getting from this, and that's the reason that I titled this episode of Contemporary the way that I did. It's because this is I just did a cheap Google Translate when I did it, but I closed it already. I said, the MAGA is the source of all of your problems, and then I had Google translate that into German. I don't know how close I got on colloquial German. I'm sure that it's way off because it's Google Translate. But that's where we're getting from. And this, again, I go back to the fact that I used the Hitler speech off of this because I've listened to translations, well, as much translation as we can trust, because there is an agenda, of course, with the Nazi Party, but I've listened to translations, and actually, because the second girl that I was engaged to was a German major, heard actual accurate translations, not necessarily what it is that the mainstream media wants you to hear in some of the translations, but on both occasions, a lot of what was coming out of old Uncle Adolf's mouth was, this group of people, and I don't know, especially with strikes on my main channel on YouTube, how much of this I can actually say on YouTube, and also keep in mind that Twitch is owned by Bezos, so and I'd really like to keep making money on Twitch. I like the fact that Bezos has to pay me money. But this certain group of people is the source of all your problems. They try to subvert in Germany's case, the economy. They tried to subvert the elections. They tried to take control. What is he saying here? They had a dagger to the throat of our democracy. These people, the MAGA Republicans, they can't accept the election. They all want to control your bodies and take away your right to choice. And I think we're gonna cut the speech with that, but I mean, he does have good points where he's legitimately trying to hold up the Uniter-in-Chief. But I look at something like this, and I listen to what he had to say, and I think to myself, the speechwriter. How is it that the speechwriter looked at this and said, yes, this is going to unite all of us? Completely othering an entire class of people is going to come back and unite everybody. Let's put this out here. And that's not even going on top of the fact. And I mean, we see some of the memes where they were panned out with some of this. Yes, I know. We're talking about all this here. But we see the up closes in this speech, but we see the pans out and such like that. But somewhere in a speech room, somebody looked at this and said, you know what this speech needs? A shadowy, red and black background with two Marines standing behind you in low light. Somebody looked at this and said, that's a great idea. That's a fantastic idea. Let's do that. All right, let's read some of the reaction here. That is not what I wanted to have up on cue next. From KMBC News, ABC 9, in a speech at Independence Hall, Biden says Trump allies threaten democracy. President Biden warned Thursday that equality and democracy are under assault in the U.S. as he sounded the alarm about his predecessor, Donald Trump, and MAGA Republican adherents, labeling them as an extremist threat to this nature and its future, which typically means that at some point here the boxcars are coming. Aiming to reframe the November elections as part of the battle for the nation's soul, the work of my presidency, Biden used his primetime speech at Independence Hall in Philadelphia to argue that Trump and Make America Great Again allies, who now lead the Republican Party, are a menace to the nation's system of government and its standing abroad, and its citizens' way of life. Yeah. And if that doesn't terrify you, not even just as a MAGA Republican, I'm not a Republican, and I'm really not MAGA. I did vote for Trump on the hopes of economic reform, and then he turned around and tried to spend his way out of a pandemic, and I wasn't a real big fan of that, and I almost didn't vote for him the second time. I did, very reluctantly. I don't think I could do it the third time. But, with a flag like that behind me, and the thought of I don't want to be depending on a government program to do everything else that I want in my life, I'm pretty sure my spot in the boxcar is just as reserved as everybody who's still wearing a red hats. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundation of our republic, Biden declared. He said, they're determined to take this country backward. They promote authoritarian leaders and fan the flames of political violence. And he shouted through the whole speech, too. Now, when old Uncle Adolf shouted through the entire speech, part of that might just be the emphaticness of the German language. Now, part of that is, of course, that he was up there trying to rally up his crowd of sycophants that like to go wear the friendship windmill. But part of that is the emphaticness of the German language. I learned a little bit of German, and again, as I remember, the second girl I was engaged to majored in German in college, so I've been around the German language a lot in my early 20s. But in this, and it's I'm not being hyperbolic when I do the Biden shout, the dementia shout that he does, because that's what he did for the entire 22 minutes of the speech. The explicit effort by Biden to marginalize Trump and his adherents marks a sharp turn for the president, who preached his desire to bring about national unity in his inaugural address. White House officials said it reflects his mounting concern about Trump allies' ideological proposals and relentless denial of the nation's 2020 election results. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backward, Biden said. Backward to an America where there's no right to choose. No right to privacy, no right to contraceptions, no right to marry who you love. Now, Jill, what's my line? Now, America must choose to move forward or move backwards, he said, appealing to the citizens to vote to protect democracy. For a long time, we've reassured ourselves that American democracy is guaranteed. But it's not. Biden, who largely avoided even referring to the former guy by name during his first year in office, has grown increasingly vocal in calling out Trump personally. Because of course he is. I mean, Trump is the leader of the subclass of humans that Biden would like to exterminate. Or, I don't even think it's Biden. I think it's the people who are controlling Biden. But those people want to exterminate. Now emboldened by his party's recent legislative wins and wary of Trump's return to the headlines, Biden is sharpening his attacks last week, likening the MAGA philosophy to semi-fascism. I'm going to push back, and we're probably not going to spend too much more time in this article, but I'm going to push back on... Was there an author given on this? No author given. I'm going to push back on the author of this article and say, no. The reason that Biden called out Trump by name, the reason that we're seeing the Mar-a-Lago raid, the reason that we're going out and the MAGA Republicans are being front and center off of this is because they want Trump's name in the midst of everything. At some point, people are going to realize that the numbers that they're getting from the jobs report are crap. At some point, that's going to start to dawn on people. At some point, people are going to realize, hey, you just ask dozens upon thousands of factory workers in the country to go pay for higher degrees for people with a master's in lesbian dance theory and underwater basket weaving. At some point, people are going to realize, but as long as they keep putting, and they've been doing this for the entire presidency, not necessarily Biden himself, but the news headlines, most notably. And yes, policy prescriptions and speeches from various members of the Democratic House and Senate. I've been working to try to keep this and talk about the MAGA agenda, especially when it comes to the Supreme Court, which is about the only leg that they have. They bring up Trump in obvious places, and we mock them on Twitter like, oh, well, hey, you still have Trump in your mouth. He's not in office or anything. He can't do that. But really, realistically, it's not that they're broken so much that that's all they can think about is everything that Trump did. It's that they've been conditioned to do that to try to keep that name in there, so we have the sleight of hand you're sitting here paying attention to and arguing about the Donald. Meanwhile, this hand is doing something off here in the background that you either know about or you are forced to forget about because this hand is doing something in the background. It's the same thing with all the crap coming out of Ukraine. When that was up in front and center for so long, but then once the incursion started going through and people started to realize, hey, we either need to put up and do some money or shut up about the whole thing, it dropped to the background. It's still happening, and every once in a while we still throw weapons and money over there, and I'm sure that there's some secret training exercises and troops on the ground for our country over there. But you don't pay attention to it because this hand here is telling you, well, Trump did this and Trump did that, and pay attention to Trump. Alright. Let's see. Aaron Rupar, who is, I believe, of Substack fame. I don't know, he's blue checked and he's got almost 1 million followers. I have no idea who the dude is, but thinks that this is the most important part of the speech to listen to, so let's have a listen.
But as I stand here tonight, equality and democracy are under assault. We do ourselves no favor to pretend otherwise. So tonight, I've come to this place where it all began to speak as plainly as I can to the nation about the threats we face, about the power we have in our own hands to meet these threats, and about the incredible future that lies in front of us if only we choose it. We must never forget, we the people are the true heirs of the American experiment, that began more than 2 centuries ago. We, the people, have burning inside of each of us the flame of liberty that was lit here at Independence Hall. A flame that lit our way through abolition, the Civil War, suffrage, the Great Depression, world wars, civil rights. That sacred flame still burns. Now in our time, as we build an America that is more prosperous, free and just. That is the work of my presidency, a mission I believe in with my whole soul. But first, we must be honest with each other and with ourselves. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Now, I want to be very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know, because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans.
And yeah, that's part of what we listened to in the midst of the initial speech was, yeah, I've worked with these people. These are the good Republicans over here, the ones who just bend over and take it when we tell them to. The court jester Republicans, essentially. But it's the ones that push back, that give us the finger when we call them a racist, that don't care that we insult them, that actually want to get things done. Those are the evil Republicans. By the way, Pedo Hitler is trending, hashtag Pedo Hitler, at 174,000 tweets. And Dictator is catching up quickly at 68.9 thousand.
But as I stand here tonight, equality and democracy.
Shut up. Go sniff a kid. Pointing out here, the way that CNN did this, nothing to see here. Just CNN adjusting its lighting to make Biden's blood red background look pink and less Nazi-like.
Democracy endures only if we, the people, respect the guardrails of the republic. Only if we, the people, accept the results of free and fair elections. Only if we, the people, see politics not as total war, but mediation of our differences. Democracy cannot survive when one side believes there are only two outcomes to an election. Either they win or they were cheated. And that's where the MAGA Republicans are today. Democracy.
And that's where Hillary Clinton was in 2017 rather, and her most ardent followers, and the progressives, and the Bernieites, and everything else, which, in all fairness, the Bernieites were cheated. The Bernieites got raked over the coals. They were cheated. They were heavily cheated in that. But yes, to make this less red, less dark, I mean, let's go back here. Let's look at this. Even this one, which does also seem that it was lightened. When we come up and look at something like this, versus even a little bit later in when they brought up some of the lights, versus this one here. Yeah, of course they're lightening this up to make this look less Nazi-esque. From the Associated Press, Biden sounds newly strong alarm. Trumpism menaces democracy. From Zeke Miller and Josh Boak. President Brandon charged in a primetime address Thursday that the extreme ideology of Donald Trump and his adherents threatens to the very foundation of our republic, as he summoned Americans of all stripes to help counter what he sketched as dark forces within the Republican Party to subvert democracy. In a speech at Philadelphia's Independence Hall, Biden unleashed the trappings of the presidency in an unusually strong and sweeping indictment of Trump, and what he said has become the dominant strain of the opposition party. That's not what he said. That's what he meant, but that's not what he said. He avoided calling it the dominant strain of the opposition party. It's the extremists and the MAGA Republicans and they're the good the Republicans that I can work with across the aisle. Those are the good little boys that bend over and shut up when we call them racist. They come out and they dance for us when we say you're a racist. So they say, no, please don't call me that, man. Come on. His broadside came barely 2 months after the Americans head to the polls in a bitterly contested midterm election that Biden calls a crossroads for the nation. Well, every election since 1992 has been a crossroad for the nations. I hate to tell you that, but that's how they've hyperbolated. This is the most important election of your lifetime. You have to get out and vote. This is the most important election of your life. Just get out there and vote. It's the most important election of your life. We've been hearing that since Bill Clinton was installed into office. I like this. I'd like to see the quote where he said this. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal, he said before an audience of hundreds, raising his voice over pro-Trump hecklers outside the building where the nation's founding was debated. He said that he wasn't condemning the 74 million people who voted for Trump in 2020, but added, there's no question that the Republican Party is dominated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans, using the acronym for Trump's Make America Great Again campaign slogan. I don't know, we can go back and listen to the speech again, but it sure sounds like he was condemning the 74 million people. And I didn't hear a quote that said that he wasn't condemning those people, but it sure sounds like he was condemning the 74 million people who voted against him. The explicit effort by Biden to marginalize Trump and his followers marks a sharp recent turn for the president, who preached his desire to bring a national unity in his inaugural address. Well, as was pointed out in the Discord last night, when I did a voice call last night with some of the followers here, and I don't know if Bong is in here right now. I hope he is, because I hope that he's in here ready to chat. And by the way, remember, we'll be reading the names of everyone who live chatted in here today and reading some of your live chats as well. But he had pointed out that, you're still unifying the country if you kill all your opposition. If you stuff all of your opponents in boxcars and bring them out to the gas chamber, you've still unified the country. Anybody who dares speak out at you, it worked for the Soviet Union. It worked for old Uncle Adolf. So, that's what we see for that. Let's grab one from Fox. With their, we couldn't get more replies, all the way up through, so I can't even read the headline right now. That's lame. Republicans bash demagogic Biden speech as threat to democracy with blood red lighting backdrop, I think is what that says, but I don't know why this archives in like that. But it does that on Fox every once in a while, from Bree Stimson. Republicans mocked President Biden's speech at Independence Hall in Philadelphia Thursday, in which he claimed that equality and democracy are under assault by MAGA forces as demagogic, shameful, and with a background that looks like a Soviet Union and Hitler had a baby. I like that. I'm keeping that. I'm taking that. Ben Shapiro, who posted a photo of the president in dramatic red background, called Biden's speech the most demagogic, outrageous, and divisive speech. Actually, let's read this in Ben voice. Okay, gang. This was the most demagogic, outrageous, and divisive speech that I've ever seen from an American president. Joe Biden essentially declared all those who oppose him and his agenda as enemies of the Republic. Truly shameful. Okay, gang? And make sure that you go buy some birch gold. Gold is never worth nothing, so buy birch gold. use promo code Shapiro because I get shekels every time. And those are made in gold too, but I get some of those every time you use promo code Shapiro. They've been with us forever, so go buy your Birch Gold. Nothing screams unity like a backdrop of blood red lighting and Marines positioned behind Biden as he shouts with raised clenched fists from the podium. Town Hall reporter Mia Cathell wrote. Ted Cruz's special advisor for communications, Steve Guest, simply wrote, "The lighting for Joe Biden's speech tonight is so bad." Cruz himself tweeted, "Tonight, Joe Biden vilified millions of Americans in a divisive and angry speech that was detached from the reality of his political failures. He isn't actually interested in restoring the soul of the nation. He's only interested in pitting his fellow Americans against one another." I don't necessarily care for Lauren Boebert when she hits one out of the park like that. When they run out of ice cream, 2 scoops of ice cream, 10 scoops of ice cream, 81 million votes. And Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports, the fact that this isn't photoshopped is surreal, and then he's got a picture there which didn't load apparently. One of the things, and I have a poll going about this, which we'll bring that over here in just a second. Heckler chants F Joe Biden throughout the primetime speech, which, yes, that was going on, but I listened to this when I first heard it, and I'm like, there's no way that the Secret Service would let a detractor of Biden get anywhere that close to him. Especially considering the fact that he thinks that, these people are a specific threat to our democracy. Furthermore, and we can probably even fast forward a little bit into the speech and listen to this, because he makes a comment about it in the speech, and he is so smooth in the transition. And Joe Biden can't even talk that smoothly in a scripted speech, but he is so smooth in this transition, it definitely sounds like they staged this so that he could come off and say, hey, look, I've even got a detractor here. Let me see if I can find that.
Can you believe it? FBI agents just doing their job as direct. We the people respect the guardrails of the republic only if we the people accept the results of free and fair elections. Only if we the people see politics not as total war but mediation of our differences. Democracy cannot survive.
Yeah, I don't hear it. I would probably have to go in through and dig through it a little bit more, but yeah, it's... Alright, let's keep going. This is from Steve Nelson. President Biden's primetime speech from Philadelphia was interrupted Thursday. No, it wasn't. He didn't stop. He didn't even pause, which is why I think that it was staged. By a heckler who chanted F Joe Biden throughout the 24-minute address, which focused on slamming former President Trump as a threat to democracy. The anti-Biden activist bellowed his profane message with such clarity that was audible not only to Biden, but anyone listening on the official White House video feed. It actually wasn't that clear. I had to turn up the volume almost to its maximum point on my phone, and I had my headphones in while I was listening to it, to even hear that something was going on. Like, you could faintly audibly hear that something was there, but you couldn't tell what it was. They're entitled to be outrageous. This is a democracy, Biden said about 20 minutes into his speech as the heckling persisted. Good manners is nothing they've ever suffered from, he added. Minutes earlier, Biden was thrown off script by the rude and constant interruption, saying, Americans have often made the greatest progress coming out of some of our darkest moments, like you're hearing from that bullhorn. And I guarantee you that line there was on the teleprompter. And there, again, we can see the blue background in behind all of this. So somebody made a conscious choice to make this red and shadowy. From the Daily Wire, Biden demonizes millions of Americans while calling for unity. RNC Research tweets out, America's economy is faster, stronger than any other advanced nation in the world, while we are in a recession.
And today, America's economy is faster, stronger than any other advanced nation in the world. We have more to go.
With 2 quarters consecutively of GDP shrinkage and a third one on deck. From CNN, McCarthy calls on Biden to apologize after semi-fascism remark. He's not going to. I don't know why you're calling on this. He doesn't even know that he said that at this point. From Daniela Diaz and Jessica Dean. Kevin McCarthy on Thursday called on President Biden to apologize for invoking fascism to describe the ideology of former President Trump and his supporters. McCarthy made the remarks during a pre-buttal speech ahead of the President's primetime address later in the evening. The speech from the House GOP leader marks an effort to center the President's message. To counter, not center. Look where my cursor is. The President's message ahead of the 2022 midterms as Republicans fight to win back control of the House of Representatives. President Biden has chosen to divide, demean, and disparage his fellow Americans. Why? Simply because they disagree with his policies, McCarthy said in a speech. That is not leadership. When the President speaks tonight at Independence Hall, the first lines out of his mouth should be to apologize for slandering tens of millions of Americans as fascist. McCarthy said, well, we listened to the first minutes of that, and that's not what he said. That's not even what he did. Biden is liking the philosophy that underpins Trump and those who have stood by him to semi-fascism, comments that Republicans have seized on to criticize the president. What we're seeing now is either the beginning or the death knell of extreme MAGA philosophy, Biden recently told a group of Democratic donors at a private home in Maryland. It's not just Trump, man. Come on. It's the entire philosophy that underpins the... I'm going to say something. It's like semi-fascism. And I keep telling us that as you try to use executive privilege and executive power to wipe out millions and billions of dollars in tax money to go to people who largely have a higher income than people who are still struggling and are still going to wind up paying for that. And as you've gone through and done things out of your presidency, like tried to hammer down a spending package that's going to drive us into more inflation and try to use executive fiat to control the environmental agenda, and to try to force people to get an injection put into their arms and lock down the country more. More McCarthy. McCarthy says Biden vilified Americans, hits Dems on inflation, immigration, and more in campaign speech. Let's gloss over this one, because this looks like this is also going to be the pre. We've got one here from our friends at NPR. Biden's speech walks a fine line as it attacks on MAGA Republicans. This was heard on Morning Edition, and this is from Domenico Montanaro. And remember, hit that donate button, because NPR needs our money, comrade, to come back out and show you that everything is evil, and MAGA Republicans are evil, and everything that we don't believe in over here at National Progressive Radio is extremism. So hit that donate button, because if you don't hit that donate button, you might be considered extreme. NPR, National Progressive Radio, never printing reality. Let's see what they have to say. Democrats have picked up some momentum this election cycle with wins in multiple special elections following the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe. And the FBI search of former president's Florida home has thrust Trump back into the spotlight front and center, Lots of his candidates have won contentious primaries, he's consolidated his base, and his renewed presence has threatened to make November elections a choice rather than a referendum on President Biden. Biden and the White House leaned into that Thursday night with an unusual primetime address that broke no news or made any big announcement. Instead, Biden took the opportunity to elevate Trump and make it a choice between what Biden and Democrats stand for and MAGA Republican extremism, as he sees it, and their rising influence in positions of power throughout the country. Let's see what it is that they had to say. Number one, Biden tried to reinforce the idea that this election is a choice, not a referendum on him. Well, yeah, because if it's a referendum on him, he fails. He loses the House and probably the Senate. And again, that's part of the timing that we see coming into midterms. Well, they're not going to charge him until after the midterms. But we're going to go raid his house and make sure you're talking about all the classified documents. And the semi-fascism and everything else about that, of course. Because if people actually focus on the failures of the Biden admin over the last year and a half, then people realize that this man and his party have no place in office. And if all they can do is talk about Trump, who does suck all the oxygen out of the room, then they're not thinking about what happened over the past year and a half, and their savings being wiped out, and their house's value about to be wiped out. And the fact that a trip to the grocery store for a single person for a week and a half costs $53. If they sit and think about Trump, they don't think about that. The fact that it costs $100 to fill up an average SUV or pickup truck. Two, this may have been a political speech, but that doesn't mean there aren't real threats. We've seen political violence. The FBI is facing threats. If the FBI threatens the FBI, is that really a threat? There's a degree of risk in Biden's strategy. There's a big risk in Biden's strategy. When you start threatening to put 74 million people into camps, there's a big threat and a degree of risk. Democrats' recent momentum in multiple special elections has largely been due to abortion rights, not necessarily about threats to democracy. Yes, a recent NBC poll showed threats to democracy rising to the number one issue, and that is significant, but as it overtook the cost of living, which was second, but it was only with 21% of respondents. Economic-related items, when combined, cost of living and jobs in the economy were 30% higher than threats to democracy. I think he screwed up with this speech. I really do. Couple from Fox News back-to-back. CNN correspondent raves Biden's speech condemning MAGA Republicans was very, very patriotic. From Lindsay Cornick. Correspondent Eva McKend lavished praise on President Biden's very, very patriotic political speech in Philly on Thursday, despite several divisive statements. McKen joined a panel in Anderson Cooper to discuss the aftermath of the speech, although senior political analyst John Avlon suggested Biden politicized his speech by invoking MAGA Republicans, which he absolutely did. McKen insisted that his comments were pro-USA and patriotic. And that is an even more dangerous statement. And something else that really stuck out to me is that he almost seemed to be reclaiming patriotism. Often you hear Republicans argue that they are pro-America party. The Democrats are not patriotic enough, but what was more pro-USA than this speech? Let's see, what was more pro-USA than the speech? I don't know, maybe the mumblings that Marjorie Taylor Greene said. Well, I don't know, she's a plant. Let's use Boebert instead. Maybe the mumblings that Lauren Boebert said as she was waking up, as she was looking out over her DC apartment this morning. That was probably more pro-USA than that speech. And I think that's exactly what Democratic voters wanted to hear. Oh, Are you kidding? Of course it is. Exactly what Democrat voters wanted to hear. Anybody who is mean to us over on Twitter is going to be put in a boxcar and taken to prison. We can imprison every MAGA voter in the country because they're a threat to democracy. Yeah, trust me, if you argue with some of these morons, that's exactly what they want. We honor the will of the people, right? Oh, well, yeah, when 50% plus one wants to see anybody who stood against them in the past election put into prison, oh yeah, that's the will of the people. A nod to our democracy, but also a nod to preserving reproductive rights. He's the president of all America, except for those evil MAGA people. I can't believe I just read that. MSDNC historian compares Biden's speech to Lincoln and FDR before Civil War and World War II. That is probably not the avenue that you want to go down. From Alexander Hall. Helton, you want to give us into why that's a problem? FDR and Lincoln before World War II and Civil War? I know you love Lincoln. Give us some nice fodder for the live chat reading at the end of the show. Michael Beschloss explained Thursday that President Biden's speech on Philadelphia was inspired by presidential speeches before two of America's biggest wars. So, does that mean that progressives are going to war with everybody else in America? Because, by the way, Beschloss, that's what that sounds like you're saying. He said on All In with Chris Hayes that he had been among historians who spoke with President Biden earlier this summer about the state of America and historic parallels, later suggesting it influenced Biden's speech. He recalled President Abraham Lincoln's speech on the events leading up to the American Civil War. 1860, this country was in big jeopardy. It was splitting apart. I was divided slavery or non-slavery, and Lincoln cast the election of 1860 by saying, "The House can't stand half slave and half free. We've got to choose," Beschloss explained. He then moved on to talk about FDR. I don't think Biden's trying to cross the line into dictator. I think the person who's pulling his strings is trying to cross the line into dictator. You know, get the old man who's going to die soon to do the dictator part of this, and then, oh, hey, look, well, he named me to be his heir apparent. Maybe it's Hunter. 1940, when FDR was running for a third term, just as you mentioned, Roosevelt didn't say the paramount issue this year is the minimum wage, although that was pretty important. Or whether Texans get an oil depletion allowance or something like that, Beschloss noted. He said, look, these are all important. But what's really at stake at this moment is whether our children are going to get to live in American democracy, especially with Hitler and the fascists looming in Europe and marching. So, I'm going to say that is actually most likely a call to action off of this, and this is Beschloss calling for a civil war. This is terrifying stuff, dude. On the other side of it, and from CNN too, CNN host and reporter call out Biden for militaristic backdrop to his speech, and liberals are furious with them. Of course, boycott CNN has been trending on and off throughout the morning. It can't stand up, and they're trying to get executive privilege trending here because, and all of Twitter right now is talking about Biden and how many problems the speech was, and Twitter is going to spend the day trying to astroturf and try to get the message back to Trump. And don't let them. I mean, if you're active on Twitter, make sure that the focus stays on this speech. I'm telling you that right now. From here until November, the word Trump should not come out of your mouth. I know we're going to be talking about the Mar-a-Lago thing, especially as they try to drive more and more into this. But from here until November, the word Trump should not be in anybody's mouth, especially after a speech like this. From Carlos Garcia. Brianna Keilar and National Affairs correspondent Jeff Zeleny criticized President Biden for the militaristic backdrop of his anti-Republican speech, and many on the left were furious with them. Zeleny says there's nothing unusual or wrong with the president delivering a political speech. It's inherent to the job description. But doing it against the backdrop of 2 Marines standing at attention and the Marine ban is a break with the White House traditions, not to mention the blood-red, shadowy backdrop. Keilar issued a similar statement. Whatever you think of this speech, the military is supposed to be apolitical. Positioning Marines in uniform behind President Biden for a political speech flies in the face of that. It's wrong when Democrats do it. It's wrong when the Republicans do it. The unhinged responses. This dummy Brianna Keilar, they watched as their daddy Trump did every illegal tactic while in the White House, but now these bag of clipped toenails have issues with decorum and history. FCNN and their MAGA CEO read one tweet. CNN's pundits have literally been posting the exact same crap tonight. Brianna Keilar and Jeff Zeleny are effing pathetic. They want you to believe that the president shouldn't call out fascism, while those two push it. LOL, said another critic. Yeah, stick around, VDens. We're going to be wrapping up here in a little bit, and then we go and do live chat at the end. It's a Friday-only thing. I don't usually do live chat throughout the week, but we do it on Friday as a little reward for those of you who stuck around throughout everything. And thanks for the view. Disgraceful, and anyone who stays at CNN and plays a part in helping fascists should be ashamed, said another detractor. I'm not just going to unfollow you, I'm going to block you and the rest of CNN since it's been taken over by fascists, read another critical tweet. Translation, and just the same thing as what we saw with that crazy-eyed, can I say bastard and still be on good graces with AM radio types? I think so. Actually, I think you can say that on by the FCC. A crazy-eyed bastard, Dabrowski. Well, you know, when they stop spewing the propaganda that I want about the candidates that I want, then that means that they're evil. Keilar responded to some of the criticism in a second tweet, where she said, it's possible to agree with everything Biden said and still disagree with him using Marines as a backdrop for a political speech. Apparently it's not. Alright, time for memes. Yeah, we're not going to get through everything off of this. It is already 9. I've still got to go to work after this, so. But time for memes. Sardonic Robot says, I think Biden's speech may have backfired on him a bit. Hashtag pedo Hitler. I don't know if Twitter shut down that trend, as it's not showing up anymore. But yeah, again, they're trying to get executive privilege to be on the top trend because they are desperate to get Twitter talking about Trump again. But I still think that's hilarious. Again, as I said at the beginning, somebody wrote the speech that we listened to yesterday. Somebody wrote that speech and said, you know what this speech needs? A blood-red shadowy background with 2 Marines standing in the back. That'll unite everybody. And of course, Ron Coulter. You know who did it better? If that's your thing. All right. And that, by the way, is all that we have on the speech. So we're going to touch on a few things. One from the Daily Wire. Biden says his spending agenda took America from an economic crisis to an economic recovery. From Ben Ziesloft. President Biden claimed on Wednesday that the American Rescue Plan was responsible for an apparent economic rebound in the United States. The economy met the rule of thumb definition of a recession, 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. 2 months ago, as the economy shrank at 1.5% annualized rate in the first quarter and contracted 0.9 pace in the second quarter, yet the Biden admin has repeatedly argued the economy, which has been plagued by inflationary pressures and persistent supply chain backlogs for the past 2 years, is stronger than ever. The American Rescue Plan took America from an economic crisis to an economic recovery, Biden said on social media, and not a single Republican voted for it. I can go even further, even though I don't really have a vote in it because I'm not in Congress, but I can go further than that and say, not only did I not vote for the American Recovery Plan, I called out the ones that the predecessor did because, again, what did I call him? The orange spending spree. Yeah, the tax cut was really cool, but he needed to stop the spending to go along with it. Biden signed the American Rescue Plan, a $1.9 trillion stimulus package that included a $1,400 relief payment for those who met qualifications and an extension of $300 weekly enhanced federal unemployment insurance. At the outset of his tenure, the legislation was among the largest stimulus package in American history and followed Trump's $2.2 trillion CARES Act, which I was against, by the way. Evidence that the higher unemployment checks contributed to record high inflation was continued to mount. While some states allowed residents to continue receiving the benefits through September of 2021, others opted out of the program in the interest of fostering a recovery in their labor markets. Economists Harry Holzer, Glenn Hubbard, and Michael Strain noted in a recent paper that states which prematurely nixed the benefits saw the flow of unemployed workers into employment increases by about 2/3. Biden, however, still asserts that the American Rescue Plan fostered a fundamentally different economic vision that induced a landmark recovery. The previous administration lost more jobs on its watch than any admin since Herbert Hoover, as governors were locking down their states and telling people that they weren't allowed to go to work. That's a fact, man. All based on failed trickle-down economics that benefited the... No, that's not what it was based on, you moron. That benefited the wealthiest Americans and hit the middle class and working people the hardest, Biden argued during a speech delivered in Ohio 2 months ago. We designed the American Rescue Plan based on the belief that recovery should help all Americans prosper, as the money went to Walmart and Amazon because they were the only places that were open. A plan that led to the most jobs created in the first period of a presidency than at any other time in all of American history. So, the people who followed you broke all the toys and now want credit for fixing them. Yeah, this dude is a moron. CNBC host calls out disingenuous narrative pushed by Biden admin on student loan debt forgiveness plan. From Chris Enlow. CNBC host Joe Kernan condemned the disingenuous narrative that the Biden admin is using when asked how it will pay for President Biden's student loan debt forgiveness plan. Officials have been repeatedly asked how they will pay him for the plan, which the White House says will cost $240 billion over the next 10 years, but which nonpartisan analyses say will cost at least $500 billion. To pay for it, officials have said record deficit reduction, which they attribute to Biden, will cover the cost. Kernan confronted Jared Bernstein, a top Biden economic advisor, on Squawk Box on Wednesday over the assertion that the deficit reduction split the bill. To say that we've got deficit reduction in place and therefore somehow that's going to cover the $500 billion we're spending on student loan replacement just because we're no longer emergency spending mode from the Pinko Pox years, to take credit for lowering the deficit by $1 trillion because they're no longer spending on these emergencies and saying therefore we somehow got this slush fund of $1.2 billion to work from, that is disingenuous, and we haven't heard anything better from the Biden admin on where you're going to pay for this, Kernan confronted. In response, Bernstein claimed that the student loan debt forgiveness spending is far outweighed by the amount of deficit reduction. It's very simple, just saying basically 1.7 billion is a lot bigger than 240 billion. The latter being the cost of debt forgiveness program, Bernstein said. The allergies are back. We're getting into fall. Ragweed away! From the CBO projects the federal budget deficit will shrink to $1 trillion in 2022. It was $2.8 trillion last year, and that the annual shortfall would average $1.6 trillion from 2023 to 2032. The deficit continues to decrease as a percentage of gross domestic product next year as spending related to the coronavirus pandemic wanes. And also, by the way, your taxes are going up. So, there you go. One left over from yesterday. Biden announces plans to give pay raises to federal employees in 2023. From Amy B. Wang. President Biden on Wednesday announced plans to give civilian federal employees a pay raise in 2023 consistent with the increases he had proposed in his 2023 budget. In a letter to Speaker Pelosi, Biden said there would be an overall average of 4.6% civilian federal employees to take effect on January 1st. Specifically, I've determined that for 2023, across-the-board pay increases will be 4.1%, and locality pay increases will average 0.5%, resulting in an overall average increase of 4.6% for civilian federal employees, Biden wrote. Yes, let's go get more of those people hooked on the government dole so that they can be political pawns the next time you have to have a battle over a government shutdown. He cited recruitment and retention challenges for federal positions as part of the reason for the proposed increases. The new pay plan, he added, would allow the federal government to better compete with the private sector. Multiple years of lower pay raises for federal civilian employees than called for under regular law resulted in a substantial pay back for federal employees compared to the private sector, Biden wrote. That's a good thing. Believe it or not, our economy works better when people not affiliated with the government are hiring people, and not the federal government. This is not a planned economy. The American people rely on federal agencies being managed and staffed by skilled, talented, and engaged employees. I'm an American person, and I don't. Including those possessing critical skill sets, which requires keeping federal pay competitive. So, there you go, the federal workforce is growing. Aren't you excited? Let's grab one from the Associated Press. Hawaii quits coal in a bid to fight climate change. In further news, it becomes much more expensive to go and vacation in Hawaii because you're going to have to pay for the upcharge in the energy. From Caleb Jones. The last bits of ash and greenhouse gases from Hawaii's only remaining coal-fired plant slipped into the environment this week when the state's dirtiest source of electricity burned its final pieces of fuel. The last coal shipment arrived on the islands at the end of July, and the AES Corporation coal plant closed Thursday after 30 years in operation. The facility produced up to a fifth of the electricity in Oahu, the most populous island in the state of nearly 1.5 million people. Geez, there's 1.5 million people living on those islands? It seems like that would be crowded. It's really about reducing greenhouse gases, Hawaii Governor David Ike said in an interview with the Associated Press. And this coal facility is one of the largest emitters. Taking it offline means that we'll stop the 1.5 million metric tons of greenhouse gases that were emitted annually. Like other Pacific islands, the Hawaiian chain has suffered from the cascading impacts of climate change. The state is experiencing the destruction of coral reefs from bleaching associating with increasing ocean temperatures, rapid sea level rise, and more intense storms and drought that is increasing the state's wildfire risk. So, do they have a plan as to what to do with 20% of their energy? Or where to get 20% more energy out of everything else? If that's the most populous island on a state that has 1.5 million people living across it, at some point something's got to give. From ABC 7 out of Denver, how much more can we get through? Gotta move that one. Thousands of XL customers locked out of thermostats during an energy emergency. From Jacqueline Allen. During the dog days of summer, it's important to keep your home cool, but when thousands of XL customers in Colorado tried adjusting their thermostats Tuesday, they learned they had no control over the temperature in their own homes. Temperatures climbed into the 90s, which is why Tony Tallarico just tried to crank up the air conditioning in his partner's Arvada home. I mean, it was 90 out, and it was right during the peak period, Tallarico said. It was hot. That's when he saw the message on the thermostat stating the temperature was locked due to an energy emergency. Normally, when we see a message like that, we're able to override it, Tallarico said. In this case, we weren't. So our thermostat was locked in at 78 or 79. On social media, dozens of XL customers complained of similar experiences, some reporting home temperatures as high as 88. XL confirmed to Contact Denver 7 that 22,000 customers who had signed up for the Colorado AC Rewards program were locked out of their smart thermostat for hours on Tuesday. It's a voluntary program. Oh, it's a voluntary program, all right. Let's remember that this is something that customers choose to be a part of based on the incentives, said Emmett Romine, Vice President of Consumer Solutions and Innovation at XL. Hey, we'll go knock 10% off your electric bill every year. If you go in, or every month, if you go in and put in this thermostat that we're totally not going to screw with. That right there, in and of itself, was an immediate incentive for me to never have one of those thermostats. And by the way, I am not opposed to having a web-based thermostat, but it's not going to be something that's connected onto the local electric affiliate down here. It's going to be something that is it's going to be something that's controlled on an internal network that I can control, but that nobody else, as far as I know, can get into. If they want to get into this and control my thermostat, which, you know, these are things that you can do with the Raspberry Pi to do a smart home thing. If they want to screw with that, they're going to have to actually legitimately hack into my internal network, which, I mean, I'm sure that they're not above that, but yes, we have come to a point where the electric company is making the decision for you whether or not you will have electricity, and you will like it. Yeah, customers receive a $100 credit for enrolling in the program and $25 annually. But Romine said customers also agree to give up some control and save energy and money and make the system more reliable. For $25 annually, that's not worth it to me. I can make a more efficient thermostat with a Raspberry Pi.
Thank you so much for playing my game.
Yeah, and there's, again, the emergency side. To me, an emergency means there's, life, limb, or, some other danger out there. Some, massive wildfires, Tallarico said, even if it's a once-in-a-blue moon situation, it just doesn't sit right with us not being able to control our own thermostat in our house. That's going to be an absolutely not for me. From the Daily Wire, Taliban parades in front of U.S. Embassy to celebrate withdrawal anniversary. From Michael Whitaker. The Taliban celebrated the anniversary of the withdrawal of American forces from Afghanistan Wednesday with a parade in front of the U.S. Embassy in Kabul and in front of the Bagram Air Force Base.
خیش را به هیئت رهبری و مهمانان گرامی تقدیم می‌کنند.
قدرمنو حاضرینو تاسو وینئ چې د ملي دفاع وزارت هوایي ځواکونه هم د زمینی ځواکونو ملتیا کوي. شپږ وزارت ترانسپورټي او اکمالاتي چورلکې وینئ چې د زمینی ځواکونو په ملتیا له لوج څخه د تیریدو په حال کې دي.
قوت‌های هوایی امارت اسلامی افغانستان وسایط زمینی را نیز همراهی می‌کنند و از مقابل لوژ عبور می‌نمایند. بطری توپچی که در میدان نبرد حیثیت حاکم میدان را دارد و قابلیت تخریب مواضع مستحکم دشمن را در مدت کم به خود اختصاص داده است، با ادای احترام خاصی عسکری از مقابل لوژ عبور می نماید. این یک سلاح مدرن دوربرد توپچی که دارای قدرت آتشی قوی و مانوری عالی بوده که در مقابل هر نوع اهداف مستور و غیر مستور در داخل، شیله ها و عقب تپه ها در مسافات دور و نزدیک در مقابل اهداف دشمن استعمال می گردد.
BM-21 هغه راکټ دی چې لومړنی ورژن یې تر 100 پورې او وروستنی ورژن یې له 10 تر 40 کیلومترو پورې واټن ولي. تر 100 کیلوګرامه پورې منفجره مواد یې په سرګلوله کې انتقالېدلی شي. د باران او ژلیو په څیر د دشمن په مراکزو، پوځي استحکاماتو او ذخایرو راووري او پیاده قطعاتو ته د دې زمینه برابروي چې په خپلو تعرضي بریدونو کې د دشمن دفاعي کرښې له منځه یوسي او ساحې تر خپل واک لاندې راولي. دا دی اوس د BM-21 یا 40 ملي بطاریې یو نمایشي کنډک د لوژ له مخې په عالي نظم او ډسپلین سره د تېرېدو په حال کې دی.
Damn it, I did it again. That's 3 times in one broadcast. So yeah, there's that. I do have to wonder how many of those vehicles were actually formerly U.S. military vehicles, and I'm willing to bet that it was all of them. That's the 3rd time in this broadcast I did that. That's embarrassing. And I've been doing this for 660 episodes today. Damn it. So, that's what we have for that. You know that thing with the CHIPS Act and the chip sales and how we're going to go bring back the manufacturing over here? Well, guess what? From Axios, U.S. restricts chip sales to China, and also looks like they're going to do Russia. Graphics chip maker NVIDIA announced the Securities Exchange Commission filing Wednesday that the U.S. government is restricting its sales of chips to China, effective immediately. The U.S. government has imposed a new license requirement for any future export to China, including Hong Kong and Russia, in order to address the risk that the covered product may be used in or diverted to military end use per the filing. The new rule marks a significant escalation in the Biden admin's efforts to prevent future supply chain crises and increase competition with China's government as tensions with Beijing continue to simmer following visits to Taiwan by Speaker Pelosi and other U.S. officials this month. So, number one, this is the government picking winners and losers. The government telling a business, you cannot sell to people whose money is green, which I think is crap in and of itself. I don't particularly care for China, but I'm not going to stand here and tell NVIDIA, you can't sell to somebody who's willing to pay you. Especially if I have intent to go buy stock in them. But speaking of stock, and this is important, this is the reason I included this, we have a tweet from Nancy Pelosi's stock tracker. Nancy Pelosi's stock tracker tweets out breaking. Remember when Pelosi sold 25,000 shares of NVIDIA back in July? Well, NVIDIA was just told by the US government to restrict chip sales in China and Russia. NVIDIA is currently down 6% after hours. The Pelosi's saved $600,000 of losses by selling their shares. Going on with that, the Pelosi initial sale was $165 a share. NVIDIA is currently trading at $141 a share. NVIDIA is down 15% since their sale back in July. I really got to follow this account. I don't know why, because when they come back out and tweet something that they're doing, I want to get in on it too. I want to go make money the same way Pelosi does, with insider trading. Alright, it is 9:22. I think we are going to have to get into the live chat for today. But there were a couple that I do want to get through before we head out of here. So, 2 from the Daily Wire, 1 from the Daily Mail. This is a review on something that we covered at the end of last week. She's not my kid anymore. Father of the 10-year-old trans model breaks silence. From Amanda Prestigiacomo. Timothy McCord, the father of 10-year-old Noella McMahar, who's been hyped in the media as the world's youngest transgender model, said this week that he has no say in Noella's life. McCord was reportedly resistant to his ex-wife Dee McMahar transitioning their young son to female, starting at age 4. I have no say in it, McCord told the New York Post on Wednesday when asked about Noelle being socially transitioned and potentially undergoing surgical transition in the future. She's not my kid anymore. McCord recalled a legal nightmare after the 2016 incident with Noella's pajamas. McMahar claimed that McCord hurt Noella's arm when trying to put the child in boy pajamas. The next day, Dee called and said, "You need a break from the kids because Noella has a sprain," McCord told the Post. Then she called back and Noella's arm is broken. "I think you need a lawyer." Notably, Dee tried to have McCord convicted of a hate crime over the incident, but was unsuccessful. 2 years later, McCord was given probation after he pleaded down to misdemeanor child endangerment, fearing the continuing legal fight was hopeless. He ultimately lost custody of Noella and his other son. "I've tried to get back in their lives, but ended up too contentious and stressful for everyone," the father said. McCord denies the accusations from his ex, but relinquished his rights to allow McMahar and her partner, who is also transgender, to adopt his children. "I was given the opportunity to step back and let Dee's partner adopt the kids, and I did that in the hopes that they would not have all the stress that this was causing in their lives. If they have questions, I'm here," McCord said of the children. "I'm not hard to find." That is terrifying. To try to have the father of your children from back when you were still a woman convicted of a hate crime. And people wonder why those MGTOW idiots are so adamant that the divorce system favors anybody but them. And they are adamant. I don't necessarily think that they are completely correct, but when I see stuff like this, I think they might be going down the right path at least. But regardless, that is terrifying. For some of you trad folk, from the Daily Mail, the women who are submissive and proud, wives and girlfriends who like to serve, brag about quitting jobs to do the cleaning, raise his babies and scratch his back to sleep, and hit back at critics who say they're oppressed. From Maria Shorando for Mail Online. An increasing number of women are taking to social media to discuss their lives as submissive wives and girlfriends, a trend which has seen them ditch their jobs to look after their partners full time. Videos on TikTok under hashtags including submissive women, submissive wives, and trad wives include both men and women discussing the lifestyle, what it means to them, and why they enjoy it. Among thousands of videos online are ones featuring US and UK housewives discussing how happy they are to have ditched feminism and replaced it with femininity, opting to relinquish financial independence and control, and replace them with domestic chores and subservience to their husbands and boyfriends. Well-known UK trad wife Alina Pettit, founder of lifestyle website The Darling Academy, writes on her blog that she learned to love herself and her feminine identity after an early midlife crisis left her shattered and emotionally and wondering why the world, despite all its opportunity, made me feel so unsatisfied with her life and how her supposed modern and empowering choices had destroyed her. She ditched her stressful London career for a traditional homemaker's life, and in the Cotswolds, which includes living off an allowance given to her by her husband and which she's frugal with expenses, is allowed to keep for herself. According to Alina, she's never been happier. And the article goes on to talk about more examples of people who are like this, and I will say, what's most important off of all of this is what works for both people, for both partners in the situation. I would love to be able, and not every man is going to have a career that allows for this either, unfortunately. We've lived in a point where so many of the feminists have invaded the workforce. This is probably going to get me shut down on YouTube for just saying invaded like that, but have pushed themselves into the workforce like this to a point where now we're in the situation of, oh, well, now the wages are dropping off this, nobody can afford to go on one income. I mean, Elizabeth Warren wrote an entire book on that, The Two-Income Trap. So I don't know that this is going to work specifically outward for everybody, but it is a matter of what works for the household and the household that it's in. When I was growing up, both my parents worked. My dad had the breadwinner job. I'm not going to say what it was, but he had a very, very good job, especially in the area that we lived in. And while my mom did work, it wasn't the breadwinner job. Although she did point out, because she was waiting tables, that on some of the holiday weekends and some of the big travel weekends, she was making more per hour because of tips than my dad was. And she was very good at it too. Incredibly good at it. But they maintained the household in a joint checking account in a position where, yeah, my dad was pretty much the breadwinner. But they did both work, and there are households that are like that. The situation that I almost got myself in until I realized that she was using it as a form of control and she wanted me to go back and be the house husband and raise the kids was my ex-girlfriend, the one that I lived with, who had a very, very high-paying job, almost six-figure, versus my about $35,000 at the time job. In a situation, and that is what she wants out of her life, is to go back and be able to grow the kids and then just leave them behind with a husband. And wonders why in somewhat traditional southern Wisconsin it's not working for her. But it is a matter of what works best for the household in general. Like my grandparents, on both sides actually, both of my grandfathers were union workers, and a lot of the times in both situations, and I've heard some of this from both of my parents, it was that grandpa on both sides came home, brought the paycheck home, either gave the cash or put it in the bank. I don't know how it really worked with banking back then, but brought the paycheck home and gave it back to my grandmas, both sides, and they paid the bills. They ran the household, they got the groceries. Grandpa went out and worked, grandma came home and ran the household. And on both instances did very, very well with it. Incredibly well with it. I always joke a little bit, and this is a little bit off topic with this, that my dad's older brother is 6'1", and a good 3 to 350. He's a big boy. And a lot of that is in muscle too, because yeah, in spite of it's part of the way that he's built, but also in spite of that is the fact that, I mean, he did an office job for a long time, but he was also industrial and he does maintenance. He is 6'1", and he is a good 350, and he is afraid, still to this day, of his 84-year-old mother, who is 4'9" and 114. And yes, still in this situation. 64 years old versus 88 years old. If he were to step out of line, even as an adult, my grandma, at 4'9" and 114 pounds, would put him over her knee. So it depends mostly, and I go back into what the situation is in the household. Not necessarily what society wants, but what's the situation that's best for both the partners in the household. But I appreciate the fact that a lot of the feminists are looking at this and saying, this might be better than what my school teacher told me, my progressive school teacher told me, that I have to be the career woman. I have to. Like Lois Griffin said in the feminism episode of Family Guy, feminism is about a choice. I'm choosing to be a wife and a mother, and I'm choosing to end this conversation. Alright, that was a long diatribe off of completely what I was going to talk about with this. Let's grab this last Daily Wire article, and let's do live chat after this. From the Daily Wire, nonprofit apologizes for knowingly hiring child sex offender to work with sex assault victims. From Amanda Prestigiacomo. A nonprofit dedicated to helping survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence apologized for knowingly hiring a registered sex offender to work with victims. Vera House, located in Syracuse, New York, employed Level 2 registered sex offender Marcus Jackson to work as a victim advocate, Central New York Central reported. Jackson mutually parted ways with the nonprofit at the beginning of August. Mutually. We did not make staff aware of the facts surrounding Mr. Jackson's background when he was hired, and they had no role in his employment, Vera House leaders admitted in a statement issued last week. That decision was made by two leaders of Vera House's advocacy program and approved by our executive director. Jackson was hired back in October of 2020 when Randy Bregman was serving as the only executive director at the time. CNY Central noted Bregman was confessed to knowing about Jackson's 2000 conviction for having sexual contact with two boys aged 15 and 16, and a 2016 conviction for failing to register as a sex offender as required by Florida law. Vera House was apparently fine with Jackson's employment while stipulating that he not work with victims under 18. Jackson was forthcoming about that part of his past, Vera House admitted. As a result of this knowledge, there were safeguard procedures in place to prevent contact with minor based on our commitment to protect such vulnerable population. Our review of his work, though, concluded that Jackson did have contact with at least one minor victim at Vera House last year. Oops! Jackson's history and employment was uncovered in the press following a complaint from a whistleblower who said the sex offender had contact with victims under 18 years old. We regret the decision to hire him and are deeply sorry for the pain and confusion this has caused, the statement continued. Our staff deserve to work in a safe, transparent environment. They are rightfully proud of the work that they do, and news about Mr. Jackson's history and distracts from the important services these professionals provide. So, whoopsie! Who could have seen that coming? Who could have seen that coming? Alright, let's go see what you guys have to say for the day. First thing I'll do is back up to the top and see how much we missed from the beginning. So this is the last thing we do on Friday. For those of you who are new, and I've seen a couple new names in here, on Monday, at the end, we look at one of the rules of Ferengi acquisition. I don't typically look at the live chat during this because a lot of people, especially over on Twitch, come in to try to hijack the conversation to try to get a person deplatformed. So we just do the news and keep going. But on Monday, we do one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. On Tuesday, we look at Twitter trending. On Wednesday, I do something that restores my faith in humanity, something I'm thankful for. On Thursday, thing I like and thing I hate. And on Friday, my favorite part of the day, the favorite part of the end of the show, is I go through, I write the names down of everybody who chatted in the live chat throughout the week, and I say a special thank you to them, and we go through some of the live chat that you guys put out there today. So, what do we got going on here? Ron Helton is here. Good morning. Jay Edgar and fellow Ed Heads with the sticker party over on the D Live. Thank you for that. Looks like Fanning's got 100 lemons in on the contribution, which I also think this weekend I'm going to go over and do the paperwork for the contribution, because I can probably take some somewhat significant money out of D-Live right now, thanks to people like you. If you have ice cream or such on D-Live and you want to throw them at me, that's always appreciated. Also, subscriptions and follows over on Twitch as well. Or bits, if you want to throw bits. We love bits around here. I don't have any rewards set up for channel points, so if you guys don't feel like using channel points for that, I am okay with that, because you're not getting anything back out of it. But if you hit the follow button or the tier 1 subscription, the prime subscription, we do have some emotes for you as well. I made the emote, well, I didn't make the emotes, so I basically used memes around internet culture, and I've got a slate that I'm probably going to do something for. I think I'm going to do that over the weekend too for a bit. I've got a slate of things that I want to add for tier 2, even though I've never had a tier 2 subscriber, and one really, really, really spicy emote that Twitch actually might shut me down over. For if you feel generous enough to pay $25 for a month that you get to use. All that will be in the Discord too, by the way, so you can see the preview without paying the money. But the only way you can use it on Twitch is if you pay the money. Got to get paid, says Quest Fanning. I see that over there. All right, over the week. A little bit busier of a week this week than last week. Oops, bump the mic check. On the week, though, we had, on Monday, Quest Fanning, Sky Rampant, who is one of our detractors, and we love our detractors too, by the way. Arbolt, Ron Helton, A Gaines P, Randy Crush Saga, A Gaines P, my sugar daddy over here, and I called him that on the Discord. He was in on the Discord voice chat last night. I'm like, hey, this is the guy that gifts out subs like candy. My sugar daddy over here. Let's see. Randy Crush Saga, Luke Wee, Set of a Can't to Spare. On Tuesday, we had Quest Fanning, Arbolt, Ron Helton, A Gaines P, Harvey McLeod, who I have actually, while we were watching some videos, sent a couple messages to for an unrelated point on air. I'm surprised we haven't seen her in here today, but we like Harvey McLeod over here. Job for 9, MK Ultra, Job for 9 giving me a very generous donation over the weekend last weekend. Thank you for that on the PayPal. And to answer for Job for 9, yes, we have added Venmo capability as well. MK Ultra, Randy Crush Saga, and Chilaga. On Wednesday, Quest Fanning, Ron Helton, Tygar84X, who I believe is another detractor who decided to call us back out. Arbolt24, A Gaines P, Horatius, Chilaga, MK Ultra, and Fraz-Z, although I think Fraz-Z was a buy followers and primes, because I do remember having one of those. Want to become famous? Buy followers, primes, and subs. BigFollows.com. Yesterday, our chatters were Arbolt, Ron Helton, Randy Crush Saga, Quest Fanning, Catalytic Converter, who I saw that Arbolt was messing around with yesterday. That guy was fun. MK Ultra and Jupak Shalom, who was also Goats and Scarves over on YouTube on the main channel, but yeah. Yeah. We're not going to talk about the main channel on YouTube right now. Apparently, somebody at YouTube didn't like the fact that we showed a video of a dude getting shot in Ohio. And they decided to report. And now I'm on a 2-week hiatus from the main channel, but we do have the backup channel, so. All right, what do we got going today? We've already looked at Ron Helton's sticker party. We've got Arvolt here with the Apu emote. I like that one. I love that emote, by the way. Especially since so many of you seem to like the music that we're using. And by the way, I'll put that into the chat for you here because I like it too. And if I use it for live streaming, it's copyright free, number one. But the game shops who put it up requests that we share it if we use it. So here you go. This is the playlist that I'm using. Video Game Study Lounge. I'm gonna bring you some nostalgia, I'll tell you that. Randy Crush Saga is here. Ron Helton. Ron Helton did not listen to the speech. I did not want to make my head ache. Well, I listened to it for you. Quest Fanning is here on the YouTube side, on the backup channel. Ron Helton says the house prices will collapse, but the interest rates will be too high. I am willing to... I can get on today's market, $250,000 house for $80,000. I'll pay 6.5% interest until I can refinance. I'm willing to do that. Trust me, it's better than buying a $250,000 house at $500,000 on 6.5% interest. Heil Brendan! Thank you, Ron Helton. Randy says, I'd say they were asking for it, but they knew exactly what they were doing. Also says, fact check. The clip played by J. Edgar was heavily doctored. Yeah, you back up to the beginning of the show. I played the Biden speech muted, and then I played a Hitler speech over the top of it. But I had the Hitler speech going on over in my left-hand screen over here, so you guys can't see it. I've got 3 screens sitting over here, for those of you who are new. So the one you're seeing is the one in front of me. I've got the monitor for the stream up over here in my right-hand screen, so I can see, hey, look, I forgot to turn my microphone on. I can see that over here. I can see everything up here. I can see that we're connected and what everybody's seeing. And then while I'm on air, I do research or various other things over in my left screen where I've got my Twitter. I've got things like that. I've actually got the music over there, the music control over there. So that's how I do things. And during the broadcast, I keep the live chat up over there as well. Let's see, what else do we have? Arvolt says it sounded better in the original German. Ron Helton says secession now, secession forever. Can't fix corrupt, too far gone. Utter BS while politics for midterms. Arvolt says he keeps saying we the people, but doesn't say it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bans. It is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, to institute new government. Arvolt, that sounds like insurrection talk. Would you like to say more of that into just straight into my chest here? Ron Helton says you can't have prosperous with a system that steals from productive and gives out to the unproductive. Quest Fanning says that should be Biden's nickname, the Great Depressing. Randy, they didn't learn anything from the basket of deplorables fiasco. Ron Helton says he talks about liberty, yet the government regulates everything. Quest says no right to choose, as in to choose from more than 3 flavors of salad dressing. Hell, I have more than that in my fridge right now. Well, Ron Helton, does he believe that 81 million voted for his crooked ass? Probably. Randy says, this speech needs red curtains and threats. Which of these fascist leaders are fascist leaders and which one is Charlie Chaplin? Please retweet me. And I did, by the way. I retweeted you, Quest Fanning. Plus says, so is this also the place it can all end? Oh, democracy, because, yeah. We're in the place where democracy started, man. Shalaga is here. Optics of red lights behind him are so strange. Like, Red lights can be good for good things. They're short wavelength and they induce REM sleep. I actually sleep under a red LED strip light in the bedroom over there, and I sleep like a baby because of it. But red lights in a politically divisive speech like that, not so good. Ron says, it was the Democrats who brought these Nazi scientists over here. These rats project a lot. Sherlock, so weird the MAGA slogan is used as a negative. Randy, go buy birch gold, or you can get papers to say that you own gold that's being stored somewhere else, like money used to be. Vampire Hunter D. I can't say that one on the air. I mean, you can see it. Obviously, everyone who's watching, not listening back, can see it. But, dude, I can't do that one on the air. Thank you, Vampire Hunter D, though. Sherlock, a good point. At least with silver, you have it in your home in our vault, so you get a paper promissory note. Randy says, I thought I heard "Let's go, Brandon" being said. Ron, good manner says the a-hole who's divisive. You guys were busy today. Sherlock says, I can't get over the optics of speech combined with what he actually said. Wild. Randy says, you have to remember our GDP shrank because of the record production levels. Quest says, Biden doesn't know what he had for breakfast. Oh, excuse me, it's before 10 a.m. Biden isn't even up yet. Quest, I can't read that one. Patriotic the same way soy milk was dairy. Ron Helton. Lincoln and FDR were tyrants. Arvold, following up, they're all tyrants. It's just a matter of degree at this point. Biden is trying to cross the line into dictator. And true, Biden is the euphemism for deep state masters. Videns is here. Welcome, Videns. Does Restream Bot mean this is not live? No, we are live right now. As we go, as I talk to you. But Restream Bot is because I'm going on to, can I say this out loud? Because I know this is technically against Twitch terms of service. I am on 4 other platforms at the same time through Restream. So the Restream Bot is bringing all your chat together in one single stream. So you guys can all talk to each other no matter which platform you choose to speak on. I love that we're listening to the collapse of civilization and Mario music, background music. Yes, welcome to the best morning news show. Thank you, Arvold. Videns likes the music. Yeah, I like this playlist. I try to switch it up every once in a while, but I'm a video game guy, so I love this playlist, and it's a lot of nostalgia for me. The memes were too easy. Randy says, I thought the speech needed more cowbell. Plus, Fanny says, my brother Vetler points out what's wrong with pedo Hitler. Those are separate parts of his life. He said hard. It'll be paid for by the Hunter Biden sex tape revenue. You just described the American way. Dependency. Things have changed. Tattoo Lover is here. Says, as long as martial law doesn't happen on the anniversary of September 11th this year, I hope Twitch and Instagram and YouTube stays free forever. I hope so too, but if you do come in and decide to give a subscription or bits or something else, they're welcome. You don't have to. And there was me keeping myself muted like a moron because I took a drink. And we don't want to have straw noise in the microphone. China. Thank you, Videns. Quest says the family courts are backward. Randy says the difference between 2 versus 3 days a week was the difference between $0 and $300 a month and $1,100 a month. Quest says, in the way it's old-fashioned, they act like women need to be at the same level of protection when it's nearly impossible to get a divorce, or when it was nearly impossible to get a divorce. Randy says, my wife accepted she would not be able to keep me from getting 3 days in court due specifically to her schedule, so she chose not to waste the money for a lawyer. My lawyer was covered by a work benefit. Nice. She ended up having to pay me $5,000 out of her equity check when the house closes. Nice. At one point, she was being particularly annoying, and I told her that it's all because she didn't think through. She scoffed, and I asked, how much of this has gone the way that you think it was going to go? Nice. Jupak Shalom says, switches don't care how big you are. Welcome, Jupak Shalom. Quest says, I've got to say, most of the reason I'm single earner and Katie stay at home is practical. I got employed first, then her background in education has come in useful in taking the lead in Brandy's homeschooling. Good job. Viden says, can you make a Halloween episode you dress up as a vampire or something like that? I dressed up as Razorfist this past Halloween, and I think right after Halloween I'm going to chop my hair because we are, by the way, getting to the point where it's long enough that it's donatable. We're getting about to the 10-inch mark for it, which that's what I did. That's why I grew it out, was because we're going to donate it for a cancer wig because there's so much cancer in my family. But before we do that, I'm going to wait for Halloween, and I'm going to revive the Razorfist costume for one more time. I'm hopefully going to be a little bit more high energy for this too, and maybe we can do it in Razorfist voice for most of the stream as well. God fucking speed. But yes, I do dress up on Halloween. Quest says, I don't see gains today. Hope he's doing okay. And Shalom says, he's probably at the gym getting gains. Randy says, I need to pay more attention. I keep missing the detractors because I just listen while trying to get stuff ready for the move as of late. But it said, I would have understood the Hitler speech because I'm from Germany. Well, yeah, my second fiance was a German major as well, so she actually spent summer when we were together 15 years ago in Heidelberg. Plus says, I've taken a bunch of sub-inflation loans over the past weeks. The rates are going to skyrocket soon and I want to get paid to hold their money. Randy says, I can't wait to paint my room and my new house a darker color and get blackout curtains as opposed to the Chinese lantern blinds we have here because they practically light up the room. Fidden says, I like the bot. Randy says, multicast stream suck when restream bot goes down. Oh, Heidelberg's not too far away from you. I don't know, I never went there. Because I was trying to build a home for her to come back to when she came back. And when she came back from that study abroad, she actually moved in with me. So I was trying to make sure that was all secured and working. No, major in college. She wasn't military. I'm going to say, Zed isn't here anymore. She's not on this channel anymore. Alright, let's get out of here. I gotta get to work. But luckily, I've got some time to make up. So, if I go in a little bit late, then I can stay a little bit later and deal with the fallout of what's happening through this today. But, you know, otherwise, let's get out of here. Good live chat. A lot of stuff going. Now I gotta go tie my hair back up. And with my headphones in, I look like I have a mullet right now. Which apparently that's a style. My nephew, my 9-year-old nephew, has a mullet. And he got it permed, too. Which I didn't realize that was the thing. There was a guy in my church, he's probably 16, 17, he's got a mullet, too. And I just thought that the curly hair was natural. I didn't know that they were going out and getting it permed. All right. Where's my outro music? There it is. All right, so with that, we're out of here for the day. Thanks everybody who came by and chatted with us here. We will be back here. Well, I'm going to come in and probably do a video game stream on the Twitch side with no YouTube, main or backup channel over the weekend here. So come back and join for that. We're still going through Fallout 3, but we are moving in towards the end game. We're sticking more to the main quest here. There are a couple other areas that I want to explore for basic entertainment value, but yeah, we're going down the main quest right now. We want to finish it up because I want to play something that's not Fallout, because that game is so long, and the only other game that I've streamed to completion on this channel is also a Fallout game. So it's been so long. We're going to go finish that up, and then I'm going to try Mass Effect, which everyone keeps giving me rave reviews for. So definitely looking forward to that. Otherwise, be back here Monday morning, 7:30 a.m. Central Time for more Contemporary. A lot of fun there. We have a lot of good discussions out here, and do keep in mind that this is only a Friday thing when I come back and read through the live chat. So I'm not ignoring you. I do read the live chat at the end of every show, but I don't do it up on the air. But yeah, come back here, join us for that. And Monday night we'll do some more Fallout 3 as well, because that's my work from home day. So we have a bit of time to do that. Definitely looking forward to seeing more of you guys here. Thank you very much for coming out throughout the week. Thank you for the cheers. Thank you for the bits. Thank you for the ice creams over on the D-Live side, and for everything else that you guys have done. And until then, we will see you next time. Stick around. We'll go find somebody, probably a Eurogamer, to raid. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.